I'm on an aimless walking tour of Night City. Somehow I've ended up in the Japantown neighborhood's Arasaka finance streets, where animated billboards for sweet, clean speed and pornographic brain dances climb the flanks of utilitarian skyscrapers, blotting out the stars with a rainbow of neon. I pass a ramen shop, a hot dog stand, and a man selling spice, piles of garbage tucked beneath the off-ramp behind him. A mob of Christians gather at a nearby intersection screaming blasphemers at the cops. A voice makes booming proclamations in Japanese from loudspeakers overhead, flying cars crisscrossing the invisible roads between buildings. The sky glows with light pollution, but the moon is full and clear. It's a beautiful night. I just left Judy Alvarez's place. My friend's been through a lot lately. Someone close to her has been victim to a string of horrors, so we had a big heart-to-heart, undermined by the presence of my arm knife crosshairs fixed on her forehead, even though I put my arm knives away earlier. I'm polite like that. There was also the notification from that fancy sniper rifle I picked up 20 minutes ago, still hanging around. But hey, Judy's not perfect either. I've seen her clip through chairs and float across the room while confessing something deeply personal. And yet, I am duty-bound to stick through the bugs for my friend. I genuinely care. She's on my mind while I continue my walk. A street lamp floats in the air, its base failing to load. A busker plays an invisible guitar. The facade of a skyscraper flickers. I call my car and it arrives, clipping through a concrete barrier. Should I call Judy? See if she's hanging in there? It's just another day in Cyberpunk 2077, a pretty good RPG in an amazing setting, absolutely sick with bugs. There won't be another open world like this for a long time. I love wandering the mountains of trash in the outskirts of town, cutting pretty silhouettes from a distance. Up close, it's just trash. Sometimes the smog gets so thick around the old Arasaka Memorial downtown that you can't even see the tops of buildings, everything washed in dirty orange light. I watched traffic here for a long while. But take a microscope to it and you'll see the seams pretty quickly. NPCs are aimless automatons or carefully posed puppets. I've seen the same guy splayed out on a couch playing guitar all over the city. I made the mistake of stopping to inspect a roadside rave in the Badlands, only to realize that there were 3 sets of triplets in attendance. Sometimes far-off textures load in a touch too late, or the 5 o'clock rush hour snaps into existence and right in front of your eyes. Night City is a stage, not a simulation. But if you keep your eyes trained ahead, every frame is a striking, lively scene. Night City is nearly unparalleled among other open worlds at middle to long distances. I'd pay full price just to walk around and take photos. It truly is an incredible work, but one that the stories within never quite measure up to. Cyberpunk's main quest is full of interesting ideas, but marred by inconsistent characterization and focus. Johnny Silverhand, played by a grumpy Keanu Reeves, and you, a merc-for-hire named V, are center stage. As V, you witness a top-level corporate assassination and are forced to work with Johnny to expose the truth and to save V's life. Early on, a backup of Johnny Silverhand's consciousness ends up in V's head and begins to take over his mind, effectively overriding V. The effect Johnny has on V and the equal and potentially opposite or compounding effect V has on Johnny is the heart of the RPG decision-making here. Johnny is a repulsive, crude misogynist, and you can change that, assuming he doesn't swing you his way first. I had no clue whether to take my special pills to suppress the maniac in my head or to try and change him. And that's the kind of ambiguous and agonizing choice I really want in an RPG. I just wish Johnny's characterization stayed on track. While I'd make major progressions in our relationship in the main quest, he'd regularly revert to the same old Johnny in the side quests. I loved where our relationship eventually ended up, but Cyberpunk 2077 didn't really show me the work it took to get there. But as a basic adaptable foil for V, Johnny is a nice engine for introspection. Capitalism is bad, for sure, but Cyberpunk isn't interested in solving that problem. The focus is on people and how they persist, or don't, in the muck. Yeah, the story is wrapped up in espionage, sabotage, and conspiracy at the highest order, but it's driven by V's basic human motivations. He doesn't want to die. I played as a guy. He doesn't want to lose his consciousness to Johnny, and he wants to make something of himself. Depending on the decisions you make, the stakes change in major ways. Me, I took the personal mission to become a reformed corpo dorco, dreams of getting out of the city and living a simpler life. And to my surprise, Cyberpunk supported an eerily appropriate arc for me, a testament to the sprawling narrative choices laid out under the skin. And I wouldn't have seen any of it if I skipped the side missions. While entirely optional, seeing through every side character's story to the end can fundamentally change how the larger story wraps. I spent a long time with Panem, a perky, stubborn nomad vying for respect among her peers, and days deeply investigating Johnny's tragic past. I befriended a beat cop hunting down a serial killer using surreal, invasive means in what might be my favorite quest of them all. Through a delightful series of misadventures, I became friends with a sentient taxi cab operation. Yeah, like a whole ass business. The deeper side quests are infrequent, too difficult to separate from the endless warehouse infiltrations, but they're all good to great, and some are up there with CD Projekt's best, even if there's no clear Bloody Baron standout. Too bad almost every serious dramatic beat was undercut by some kind of bug, ranging from a UI crowded by notifications and crosshairs failing to disappear, to full-on scripting errors. Most are audio-visual tics, like the sound of a car loudly peeling out, wailing on during a long drive as a passenger with an NPC, or a character passing through solid elevator doors, or random objects just floating midair. They're the kind of thing I can squint through on occasion, but there wasn't a single quest in which something wacky didn't happen. The good news is that all this stuff can be fixed, but it also means the ideal Cyberpunk 2077 is delayed again, at least in spirit. But the action holds together well enough. Weapons and armor have unique traits, though it's all pretty easily reduced to how much damage you can do and withstand versus the level of enemies you're facing. It's pretty exciting stuff in the early hours, all those stats and weapons laid out before you, but the bottom drops out pretty quickly. Night City is stuffed with warehouses, armories, and secret labs to sneak into, but the objectives bleed together quickly because the means tend to repeat as well. I wanted to be a cyber ninja at first, using quick hacks to turn off cameras, destroy turrets, and blind my enemies before moving in with my katana and hacking them to bits. And things went well for a while, but pouring all of my experience and perk points into blades made me nearly unkillable within a few hours. Enemy AI is rote too. Stealth is a game of vision cones and patrol routes with nearly no meaningful distinctions between gangs and corporations. So now I slide into a room in slow-mo and headshot a few grunts before I even come to a stop. I clean up with my arm knives, snipping limbs off like paper dolls. But I'm showing off for the sake of it, not because Cyberpunk is encouraging me to use every tool in the box. The gunplay feels pretty great though. Heads pop and limbs dissolve, shotguns knock enemies on their cyber butts. But for the quieter players, there are also plenty of Deus Ex throwbacks in there. There's always a cleverly hidden sewer gate or a balcony door to discover. It's just that without any meaningful variations on enemy or level design after the first few hours, Cyberpunk is missing the incentive to experiment with it all. Sure, The Witcher 3 was funnier, more clever and subversive, but I'm taken by how hopeful Cyberpunk is. Its exploration of a techno-capitalist future relies heavily on genre tropes, with everyone from punks to dirty cops playing the part established way back in William Gibson's Neuromancer. But Cyberpunk 2077 remains a faithful treatment of the genre, and one that urged me to look for the silver lining in every shit-soaked gutter. I found it life-affirming in the final moments, even in the face of certain death and an onslaught of bugs. And I suppose it's an appropriate thematic throughline. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game about V coming apart at the seams, in a city coming apart at the seams, in a game coming apart at the seams. Play it in a few months.